Hello, guys, and welcome back to Mal's Life, where we dive into everything life has to offer and we try to solve some of its problems. Problems. So before we get started today, remember that if you like the content that you see, to give this video a big thumbs up and to subscribe so that you don't miss out on future videos, and make sure that notification bell is on. Okay, so we are finally on the final part of the series. Now, we've looked into introversion, we've looked into overthinking, we've brought it all together and saw the links between the two, and now it's finally time to start looking at some solutions. But before we do that, I just want to look a little bit at what overthinking actually does to your body. So because I think that if you actually understand the effects it's having on you, you can find solutions and implement solutions and maybe actually have more success that way. Now, in our previous videos, we did touch on some of the effects that overthinking and all of these things might have, but obviously there's a lot more. We looked at increased stress and anxiety levels. We looked at it possibly leading to depression, but there are obviously a lot more things that happen, and I think it's really important for us to look at, like I said, so that we can find solutions that are actually successful and actually be more prudent about finding solutions, because we actually know what's happening to our bodies and why it's a negative, and that might actually motivate us to try and find something that works in solving this problem for us. Okay, now if you look online for solution for the effects of overthinking, you're going to find a million plus articles. Obviously, I mean, the internet is full of things, but as always, I'm going to be focusing on one article that I found that kind of sums it up well for me. The link for that will be in the description as always, but I encourage you to read more articles if you feel so inclined, to do your own research as well if you feel like this isn't giving you enough information. There's, like I said, a million articles out there, so feel free to go read into some of these if you're really interested in the topic. Otherwise, just continue watching and see what we explore in today's video. So, the symptoms of overthinking. Some of these may actually sound pretty obvious to you because it's quite obvious, but knowing what the actual effects are, I think, is really important, because some of these things I might mention and you'll be like, wait, I actually am struggling with it's because of my overthinking. Like, you don't usually link the two, but I think if you are able to, you can, this is what's happening to me and that's why maybe I can try to solve this problem. So the first is a difficulty in decision making. Okay, yeah, what's nice about this article, it kind of puts it in list form. But decision making, the trouble of decision making, we actually explored a lot in our overthinking video and in our introvert video as well. So I don't want to talk about that too much, but it's basically you are getting stuck in a state of overthinking and inaction. You're incapable of making a decision, you're incapable of taking action. Number two is emotional absenteeism. Now that sounds like a big word, but basically what it feels like, or what it is you can think, if you're overthinking, if you're someone who struggles with it, you'll be able to relate. But for me, it's you become emotionally numb. It's like you're kind of feeling way too much, and then it comes to a point where it's, like I said, too much, and you just stop feeling anything at all. You become emotionally numb, and not only does that affect you, but it affects your relationship with other people, because you're unable to display emotions or to feel something about what someone is saying to you, whether that's happiness or sadness. You're just, because of this constant overthinking, you've become so emotionally numb because you've been feeling way too much for way too long. So that is quite a big one, because I think not only does it affect you, your emotional state, but it also affects your relationships. And if you have really good friends or family, they will try to reach out and help, but it is also hard for them. We have to understand they are also people with emotions. If you are unable to um, react to anything that they're sharing with you, so this I think is a really big issue with regards to overthinking. Number three is sleeplessness. Now, we kind of touched on that as well because overthinking tends to start happening when you're trying to get to sleep. It usually results in sleeplessness, you get anxiety, you don't sleep enough, and as we all know, if you don't get enough sleep, if you're constantly tired, it just worsens all of these issues. So, you know, getting enough sleep is something a lot of people will tell you will solve a lot of problems, and to an extent it's true because a lot of these problems cause us to lose sleep, and if you're more tired, you're more prone to these issues because you don't have enough energy to fight against them. Number four is aggression. Now, personally, I've never had outright expressions of aggression due to overthinking, but I will describe it as more as of a frustration. It gets really frustrating to the point where I could see if I had like a punching bag near me, I might punch the punching bag. I've never been like felt aggressive enough to actually do something to someone, but that frustration begins to build. And my tendency, what I do is I do this way you clench your fists into your hands. I've had nail imprints in my hands. Because that frustration, it's like you want to express that frustration in some way, but you don't actually want to be aggressive towards someone. It's more so the case that you want to just get rid of the frustration, and there is no outlet, and that for some people I can imagine can lead to aggression. So I've never experienced outright aggression, but I can see how it can lead to aggression. Now, number five and six kind of go hand in hand. It's resentment and difficulty understanding other people's perspective. Because you are so stuck in your own head already, your own thoughts are hard to make sense of. How are you going to understand other people's thoughts and what they're thinking when you can't even order your own, when you can't even uh, get control of your own thoughts? It's hard to understand someone else's perspectives because you can hardly understand your own thoughts. You can hardly quiet your own mind, and that can lead to resentment as well because you feel like you're struggling. You're constantly struggling when you see someone who looks in some capacity like they have something together. It can make you feel resentful. I don't think I've ever had that to an extent where it bothered me, but I can see how that can manifest. Okay. One of the final ones are ones that we did actually touch on a lot in the previous videos, so I'm not going to go into too much depth with them. It's loneliness, which you can imagine if you're stuck in your own head, it's really hard to build relationships. It comes back to that emotional absenteeism. Stress, obviously, we spoke about that cycle that overthinking has. Overthinking, increasing stress, anxiety, and depression. Stress, anxiety, and depression, increasing overthinking. We discussed that in the overthinking video, that positive feedback loop that has no positive effects on your life. Repetitive thoughts, obviously, and difficulty concentrating. Obviously, that like I said, a lot of these things start clicking when you think about it. It's like, oh, that makes sense why that would be a thing. Difficulty concentrating on anything going on around you it's difficult because you're too busy concentrating on what's going on in your head, and overthinking actually tires out your brain. We're touching on this later in the video. So concentrating on something else is really difficult. Now, I mentioned this already. The effects on your mental health, the increase in anxiety and depression and stress, and it's very easy to get stuck in the cycle because you cannot make decisions, you cannot take action, like they said in the first side effect of overthinking. Now, if you think about all of that and you put it all together, it can start to actually impact your daily routine. It can start impacting your ability to do anything, actually. Your productivity will obviously lessen. You will not be as productive as you could be or would be because you're stuck in a state of indecisiveness and inaction. And that doesn't only relate to the things you may be overthinking, that can relate to daily tasks that you are expected to do but cannot. Um, we mentioned how overthinking can make its way into your relationships, not only because you become emotionally numb, but if you start overthinking every single thing someone says or does in a relationship, that person can actually start getting really upset and feel very judged because you are analyzing every single thing they say. They're gonna start feeling like they have to walk around eggshells on you around you. They're gonna start feeling like they have to plan what they say and how they say it because they know you overanalyze everything they do and say. And that can obviously negatively affect a relationship, which is tough because I feel like having a close relationship with at least one person is something that can help get you out of the cycle. Um, a more physical effect, like we mentioned, is your sleep and your appetite. Now, appetite is also a big factor. We know that gut health is very much linked to your mental health with regards to anxiety and depression, which means that overthinking, once again, is playing a role there. You're not getting enough sleep. You may be eating too much or too little or the wrong things, and that may all just lead back to getting that cycle started all over again. Um, Now, the one thing I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but your brain cells actually get tired by being constantly in this mode of overthinking, and that actually dampens your creativity. And this is something I really have personal experience with because when I started getting into this really bad cycle of overthinking, was like a month where I thought I was gonna have a mental breakdown every day because of that overthinking. It makes you really tired. But the thing that makes it worse is the fact that I do like to express myself creatively. I'm learning to play the piano and the guitar. I like making my videos. I'm learning to draw. So I like writing. I really like to express myself creatively. And when I got stuck in this overthinking cycle, I couldn't do any of that. It's like none of the ideas came to me. I was not motivated to continue my lessons, and it makes it worse because now you don't feel productive. You feel like the things that bring you joy don't bring you joy because they can't, because you can never do them, because you don't feel creative ever because your brain is tired from constantly overthinking. So this is something that I feel like personally I can have a lot of experience with because if you guys can recall, there was a very long time where I didn't make YouTube videos, and that's because I didn't have the inspiration to make them because I was in this constant state of overthinking. My brain was too tired, and I feel like that again we can link to maybe a decrease in self-esteem because you don't do the things that you're good at perhaps because your brain is too tired, and that there's nothing for you to feel good about because you cannot actually do anything. Okay, so now that we kind of know what's going to happen to your body, it's time for us to find a way to break this vicious cycle that's made its way into so many people's lives by looking at some of the solutions. Now, a lot of the solutions that is in this article, solutions that are in this article, are very generic things you will probably find everywhere. But it's a start, okay? But if you have personal experience, okay, and you have found something that I do not mention in this video that has really worked for you, I want you to please comment it down below. Share your story, share what you found helps, because you may just help someone who sees this and thinks, maybe if I try this it will help. Okay, if the solutions that they give help you, that's amazing. But if you feel like there's something I missed, something I didn't mention that helped you overcome this vicious cycle, please comment it down below, because you don't know who you're gonna help. Okay, someone might just see it who really needed that advice. Okay, so the first thing they mention is understanding your thinking pattern. Um, it's hard, I feel like, to understand your thinking pattern when you're constantly overthinking, but in your moments of clarity, it would be best if you could analyze without over analyzing, which is a problem because you're already overthinking. Analyze how your thinking pattern becomes overthinking. Where does it start going from thinking to overthinking? and maybe you can, knowing where it starts can help you stop it before it goes too far. Distraction is a very good way to get over overthinking. What I do is I put music on and I focus on the lyrics. I focus on where they're changing pitch. I'm focusing on the drum beats. I'm focusing on the guitar. I'm trying to focus on all the instruments. So distracting my brain by listening to music, perhaps, to focus on the different things that keep my mind busy. Like, wait, did I miss a drum beat there? What? That distraction helps me. Drawing has also been really good for me. Just doodling, it calms me down. But of course, I know if you're in a situation where you're at work and your brain starts going crazy, you can't really use all of these distractions because you have to focus on what you're supposed to be doing, and that makes that a bit hard. So if you can, distraction is a great tool, but it's not always a tool that is possible for you to use. Um, Now, the one good thing I want to say about distraction, if you are able to use it, like I said, I use drawing, I use music, which kind of fuels some of the creativity, and that getting back into that little bit of creativity, just a little bit, by using the distraction to overcome overthinking makes you feel more productive because you're actually kind of starting to lean back into the things that you enjoy. And that increase in productivity can make you more motivated to overcome your overthinking. That increase in productivity can increase your self-esteem. It can help you just overcome this problem. So it's a small, very, very small step, but it's a step, okay? The next thing they mention is deep breathing and saying no to perfectionism. Deep breathing, I can understand, decreasing your heart rate, getting more oxygen, that's good. Saying no to perfectionism, of course, because if you're perfectionist and you're always pressuring yourself in that way, overthinking is obviously a problem. It's a very hard problem though, saying no to perfectionism when it's been so ingrained into who you are. But I feel like if that is something you know you're struggling with, explore that. Explore how you can get away from being perfect by maybe doing some research on it. I could do some research and look into it as well if you guys would be interested in seeing a video on that. But I know perfectionism is something that gets ingrained into you from a very young age and it's very hard to stop doing. But I think it's something where you can still have a high standard but not expect yourself to be perfect. Understanding your triggers is another big thing. I think it kind of relates to understanding your thinking pattern. But if you know there are certain things that cause you to start overthinking, it would be best to identify them, maybe write them down so that you know what they are and try to avoid them. Okay? But of course, I want to make this very clear. Avoiding your triggers aren't always going to be possible. That's just life, okay? You're not going to be able to avoid everything you dislike or everything that triggers overthinking. So what I would actually suggest is to identify your triggers and learn to deal with them in a positive way. To get that obviously comes in a little bit later when you learn to control your thoughts a bit better. Maybe at the beginning you're gonna have to you're gonna have to distract yourself when you see that one trigger or you hear that trigger. Maybe by distracting yourself momentarily you can stop that overthinking. But obviously if you are further along with trying to solve this, you can identify a trigger. If you come across it or it happens, you can try to control where your brain goes in that regard, because avoiding everything that triggers your overthinking is going to be nearly impossible unless you just, I don't know, no, unless nothing. There's nothing. There are gonna be times where there are things you dislike or things that cause you to overthink, and you need to be able to deal with them when they do come across your path. So being prepared, prepared, not over prepared. That is the problem here, not being overly prepared. The last thing they say is journaling, which I agree is a good idea, because journaling, if you do not have anyone to talk to, writing these things down, getting the thoughts out of your head. If you're introverted, like we said, these things stay stuck in your head, where extroverts have an advantage. They get it out by speaking. We introverts don't. So if writing it down is a way to get the thoughts out of your head, I feel like that's a very good idea. For me personally, I've always had trouble with journaling. I don't understand why, because I do love writing, but journaling in this manner has always been hard for me. So I've personally never been able to stick with it. I've just never been able to stick with it. But that doesn't mean it won't work for you. I encourage you to try it. Maybe it actually is a good outlet for you and you actually start feeling better. So these are some of the solutions in this article. That is what we're covering today, this article. Obviously, there are a lot more solutions out there. Like I mentioned at the beginning, these are pretty generic solutions that you probably know already, but I wanted to share them because someone might hear one of them and actually try and actually get success. I also wanted to share them so that if there is something that you feel like I missed, like I mentioned, comment it down below, please, because this is the whole point of this series, is to not just learn what overthinking is and what it does, but to actually solve the problem. So if you have a solution that helped you and I didn't mention it, comment it down below. You don't know who you're helping and you could be helping someone. So that is all for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching this video. Thank you so much for watching this series. I really hope you enjoyed it. I'm going to be working hard on some other ideas, and I hope to see and talk to you guys again soon. Have a lovely day and a lovely week. Bye.